everyone, good morning! So today, we'll be having the new topic to discuss. But before that, let me introduce myself. I am Ivy Jane Song from Bsed-Science 1. And to formally start, let me introduce the following participants. So, we have Aliyah Zaintanikau, Mary Kate Tundal, Elaine Bernadette Villacorta, and Vicky Ann Ruiz. Before Nicolaus Copernicus, virtually everyone believed the Earth was the center of the universe. In the early 1500s, Copernicus proved them wrong. This was the founder of January, and through his observations, he showed that the Earth revolved, and the heavens were stationary rather than the other way around. It greatly simplified our knowledge and understanding of the universe. He basically took astronomy from a system where we wanted to believe certain things to a system where we could prove that certain things were true. Copernicus was born in 1473 in Turin, Poland, to a wealthy family. He received all the advantages of a great education. He first studied painting and math. He also studied medicine and then later law, to the point where he became the canon for a local church. And only later did he develop a keen interest for astronomy. At age 35, Copernicus started questioning the prevailing thought about the universe. The dominant model prior to Copernicus was Ptolemy's model of the solar system, which had the sun and planets moving around. It was very complex, very unwieldy, and it really didn't work. Copernicus came up with a theory that was extremely elegant in its simplicity, where the sun was the center of the universe and the planets revolved around it.
In 1513, Copernicus built his own observatory to further his astronomical studies.
Copernicus advanced the idea that the time it takes a planet to orbit the sun depends on its distance from the sun. Here is the longer it takes to go around the sun, a very revolutionary idea at the time. In 1514, Copernicus published a list of 7 axioms about the universe. The sun is at the center of everything, the earth goes around the sun, the moon goes around the earth, and the stars are much farther away than the sun is from the earth. Taken together, these 7 axioms really provide the basis of modern astronomy. Copernicus' theories were rejected by scholars of the time that incensed the Catholic Church. Copernicus' writing were banned from the church after his death and were not allowed to be read for about 3 centuries. Copernicus spent his final years defending his work and died at the age of 70 on May 24, 1543. One of the more remarkable things about Copernicus is that he did all of his works with very good tools, and the observatory that he built, he didn't even have a telescope. He truly revolutionized astronomy. He changed the way we think about everything.
And now we will share to you the 10 contributions of Nicholas Copernicus to science and technology. This is Kate, and I will be sharing to you the 3 of the 10 contributions of Nicholas Copernicus. So the first contribution of Copernicus is the most recognized and revolutionary contribution is undoubtedly the heliocentrism, or the theory of heliocentrism, or otherwise known as the heliocentric model.
At some point, Ptolemy's model had been followed, which proposed that the Earth was the center of the universe, or called as the geocentrism. But Copernicus proposed a model of a spherical universe in which both the Earth and the planets and stars revolved around the sun. This contribution of Copernicus to science is perhaps the most revolutionary in the history of mankind,
a paradigm shift for the sciences, and it is from that moment that science based on observations and mathematical measurements and not from any simple theoretical affirmations or beliefs. And now let us move on to the second contribution of Copernicus, which is his dominance of ancient languages. The rise of Greek Renaissance came to Copernicus early, and in Bologna, he began to learn it in 1492.
he translated into Latin the letters of the 7th century Byzantine philosopher Theophilus of Simocatta, printed in 1509, and this is your only previous publication to De Revolutionibus Orbium Coelestium.
It is important to note that Copernicus' acquisition of a good reading level was critical for his studies in astronomy, since most of the works of Greek astronomers, including Ptolemy, had not yet been translated into Latin. Moreover, it is noteworthy that his knowledge of Greek allowed him to reinterpret Aristotle. The third contribution of Nicholas Copernicus is the changing of the theory of gravity. After the center of the universe is the Earth, implied that the center of the gravity of the universe was the Earth, corroborated with the physical phenomena occurred. If the center of the gravity is no longer the Earth, why then do things within the Earth fall to its center?
Copernicus' response to this was one of his greatest contributions to the world of science. All matter has gravity, and the heavy matter will attract and be attracted by similar heavy matter, just as the smaller matter will be attracted to the larger matter.
In this way, the small things that are on the Earth are attracted to the Earth. For example, Moon. The Moon, being smaller than Earth, revolves around it, and the Earth, being smaller than the Sun, does the same, right? So Copernicus explains his idea of gravity as follows. All celestial bodies are centers of attractions of matter.
Now, let's have the fourth contribution of Nicholas Copernicus. So his fourth contribution is the definition of the Gregorian calendar. So Copernicus helped in the revision of the Julian calendar, which was the official calendar since the 4th century. Pope Leo X asked the astronomer to participate in the reform that took place between 1513 and 1516. So Nicholas Copernicus was based on his heliocentric model of the universe to solve the problems presented by the previous calendar, but it was not until the year 1582 that all the changes came into effect in the Gregorian calendar. It is in the way that Copernicus contributed to establishing the precision of the time that passes on Earth. Now, let's have the fifth contribution of Nicholas Copernicus. So his fifth contribution is the theory of the three movements. So his model of the universe implied that Earth possesses three movements: rotation, translation, and a conical oscillation motion of its own axis. So the first is a duration of 1 day, the second of the year, and the third occurs also in year progressively. This latter movement is what modern eyes may seem strange, but it was the way in which Copernicus explains the variation of temperature in the different seasons of the year. So, what would be his sixth contribution? So his sixth contribution is the order of alignment of the planets. We all know the song, the 8 planets: Mercury, Venus, and Earth, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. So, the transition movement causes the order in which the celestial spheres are arranged to be the following. So, the supreme and immovable sphere is the Sun, which contains all the things situated in the universe. Then comes Jupiter, and Mars is near, and the next orbit moves on the Earth, then Venus, and finally Mercury. Drugstore John. Mercury. The moon revolves around the center of the Earth and moves with the Earth as an epicycle. That's all.
So, the seventh contribution of Copernicus is the retrograde movement of the planets. This order indicates one planet surpasses the another in the speed of translation according to the size of the circle. Thus, Saturn takes about 30 years to complete a cycle, Jupiter 12 years, Mars 2.5 years, and the Earth is 1 year, Venus 9 months, and the Mercury is 3 months. In this way, Copernicus explains that retrograde movement of the celestial spheres whose time of the translation is greater to the Earth, since by the difference of speed and the Earth surpasses several times to the other planets, but the observer perceives of these last ones is a trajectory in the opposite direction. So, the eighth contribution of Copernicus. Is the amount of water on Earth. The astronomer proposed that the amount of water has to be less than the land. At that time, it was believed that there was 10 times more water than land. Then, it was explained that the Earth's rotation was due to the fact that the center of gravity and the center of magnitude did not coincide and were two forces that self-balanced and this generated movement. This also used to explain why there are mountains, valleys, cavities on the surface of the Earth. However, through geometry, Copernicus demonstrated that since the Earth is a sphere, necessarily the center of gravity and the center of mass are coincident. At the same time, he came to the conclusion that the quantity of water does not may be greater than the Earth because the heavy matter is conglomerated around the center of gravity and light on the outside. Thus, if the amount of water exceeds the amount of land, the water would cover the entire surface of the Earth. So, the ninth contribution of Copernicus is the relationship between philosophy and the natural science. Nicholas Copernicus provided fundamental knowledge about the relationship between mathematics and the natural world. Some historians of science seem to ignore the fundamental of mathematics, and it is often said that the philosophical and scientific thought of the 16th century is based on heliocentricity as if they were not a natural consequences. However, it can also be ignored the heliocentrism besides solving an astronomical problem was solved with a mathematical technique.
Number 10. The theory of rising creed. Copernicus became interested in monetary matters when King Sigismund I of Poland asked him to make a proposal to reform a currency of his community. Copernicus showed that it is impossible to have two types of currency in one government. One more valuable in foreign trade, and another less valuable to local transactions. Copernicus also formulated the quantity theory of money,
which stipulates that prices vary proportionately with the supply of money in society. He explained this before the term inflation was invented.
In very simple terms for Copernicus, one should avoid putting money too much into circulation because the supply of money determines the value of the coin. The more the value of the coin, the more value of a coin is reduced. This is the main and the direct cause for prices of goods to increase.
As it has been seen, with this model of the universe, Nicholas Copernicus revolutionized the way of seeing the sky. However, his studies also implied observing the reality in a different way, since man ceased to feel the center cosmos and happened to be a mere creation of the divinity. The fundamental change that was generated at the social level was that both his astronomical advances as the mathematicians led to the scientific revolution that would end up separating the church from the academy during the modern era. Not to mention the influence that his research has had on the most renowned scientists to date.